I am so glad you're here. I'm Anna Martin, and I am here on behalf of the Greater Wilmington Tennis Association and USTA North Carolina and my love for children. I am so sorry that any of us have had to experience what happened at Holly Tree this week. But please know that we have wonderful people in our community who care about you, who care about your children, and just who care about us in general. We are so honored that Coastal Horizons has partnered with us to help you, and they are the professionals and they are here to help you. We have three wonderful guests from Coastal Horizons, and but I'd also like to take this time to thank Kenny House. Kenny House is, I believe, the director of Coastal Horizons, and he is wonderful in our community. He's also a tennis player and a member at Holly Tree, and so this has touched home to him and his heart also. And along with us is Elizabeth Redenbaugh. Elizabeth is the developmental director of Coastal Horizons, and I'm the director of a church school. She is also a former preschool parent of mine, and it was a joy to have her three children. We also have with us Javane Skiba, who is the Assistant Director of Equity, Education, and Engagement with the New Hanover County Resiliency Task Force. She's a certified community resilience model teacher and a certified Reconnect for Resilience educator. And she joined the staff of the Resiliency Task Force in January of 2020. That was a tough time to join anything, Javane, but we are so glad to have you in our community and helping in all of these areas. We also have with us Kristen Williams. Kristen serves as the School-Based Service Program Director of Coastal Horizons Center. Kristen completed her Master's of Education at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. They always come back. They want to be here. And her Master's of Social Work at the University of Southern California. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She specializes in treating childhood trauma and is a rostered clinical clinician certified in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. So we have some wonderful people here with us who also care so much about you and how they can help you with your children and others. Please know that this is being recorded. We are going to take your questions and answer them along the way. But if you have friends or other folks whom you feel have a need for this, please let us know. And we are all here to help you. So with further ado, I'm going to let Javane speak to all of you.
Well, good evening. Thank you for that introduction, Anna. And I'm really grateful that as someone who loves her community that you reached out and made that connection. So I'm grateful for you. I'm also grateful that Kristen and Elizabeth kind of helped put all this together and reached out to the Resiliency Task Force as just a community partner to help reach folks. And that's why we're here, is to collaborate and see what our community needs and then answer that call. So grateful to have some time with you all this evening on a Sunday. I'm grateful for those who have come. And I hope that you share this with your family and others in your community that are not able to be with us this evening. But the things I'm going to share with you are just a couple skills from the Community Resiliency Model, which is a model developed by the Trauma Resource Institute. The work has been led by Elaine Miller Karras, and the model is really a body-based model It talks about how our bodies respond to stress, that physiology of stress. And we take skills from this model to help us build resilience. So again, I'm just going to share a few skills from the model, and I hope that they are skills that you can take with you and use immediately. And hopefully in the future, you'll want to get more training, and we'll talk about that a bit later. When we start talking about stressful events, highly stressful events, trauma or adversity, it really serves us well to take what we call in the community resiliency model, a resiliency pause. And this is time for us to think of these 3 questions, and they are not so finite that we can't maybe think of others, but we start here. And this pause gives us a little bit of space to think about what else is true in this hard time. So I ask you right now, and if you are able, you can put your answers to these questions in the chat. What or who uplifts you? What or who gives you strength? What or who helps you get through hard times? For some of us, we may say family or our faith gets us or uplifts us. It may be that during the holiday season, the events that we're able to enjoy with family and friends are things that give us that needed strength to finish out the year. Or sometimes if we're going through something hard specifically, there might be a personal strength that we have that helps us get through, or someone that helps us get through, maybe a loved one, or even something like a fur baby or a hobby. Whatever that is for you, I just ask you to bring that to mind right now. I know for me, I love to think about going and looking at Christmas lights with my girls, with my children. So that's something that uplifts me. That's what I'm thinking about right now. And when we bring those things to mind, part of that is a skill called resourcing. That resilience pause makes us think of those things that give us that strength, that sense of strength or peace or calm or joy. And as we move to our next slide, and we have these things in mind, looking at Christmas lights or family and friends, what we really want to do is go back and notice what's happening inside of our bodies at that present moment. So as I think about those times over the years looking at Christmas lights, I think about my children giggling. I think about some of the most spectacular lights that we've seen around town, and I'm paying attention to what's going on in my body. I feel a sense of joy, and for me, that's a little bit of tightness in my cheeks or warmth in my chest as I have those thoughts of looking at Christmas lights with my family. So I invite you to just take a moment. You've thought through during that resiliency pause some things that uplift you or bring you strength. We want to give a little bit of time for the sensations around those things, that felt sense to develop. What do you notice inside? And as you take that moment, think about whether what you feel, those sensations, think about if they're pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant. When we want to build resilience, we want to turn back to those things that give us that felt sense of well-being, that are pleasant or neutral, because that's how we build resilience. You know, our brains are kind of have a negativity bias to protect us, right? So it's okay if we have a little bit of uncomfortable feelings, as that hard thing that we've experienced wants to come up in our minds, because our minds are like, oh, we have to protect, we have to be okay. But we want to kind of override that negativity bias and go straight to the thing that brings us that feeling that's pleasant or neutral, that feeling of safety. That's what helps us build resilience. So in your body, if you're noticing maybe a quickening of your heartbeat, think of that thing that uplifts you and see if you can notice maybe you're able to take a deeper breath. Maybe you notice muscles in your jaw relax or muscles in your neck relax. These are the kinds of things we want to track. And this is a skill. Tracking is a skill that we have to start to recognize alongside of our emotion. So all of our emotions have a correlating body sensation, and that's where we want to drive with the skill of tracking, going back to what's going on inside. And so as we go into our next skill, continue to pay attention to what's going on in your body. Now, our next skill is a great skill to use when we are what we call in the community resiliency model, bumped out of our resilient zone. Any of these skills are great to use when we're actually feeling okay, because we want to be able to build resilience no matter how we feel. And when we're in our resilient zone, we're able to have all different emotions there. It's our okay zone. It's where we're able to know that we're thriving, even though we're experiencing those ups and downs of daily life, right? And so when we use a skill, it helps us widen that resilient zone, so that when things happen that bump us out, a hard time or a stressful event, we're able to get back into a place where we feel like we can manage life. So on the next slide, the next skill that we're going to talk about is our help now or reset now skill. And when those hard things happen and we get so bumped out that it's hard for us to recall those things that uplift us or bring us joy or a sense of peace, these are skills that go straight to sensation and signal safety to our brain and allow us to get back into that place where we feel like we can do life, right? Where we feel like we can connect with our loved ones, where we feel like we can be okay. And these are really things that you've probably been doing for such a long time that you didn't even know you were resetting your nervous system. You didn't even know that you were that you had a skill in hand, one more tool in your toolkit to help you better manage the stress of life or even adversity and trauma. And so this help now skill is a set of 10 different things that you can do, such as going for a walk. That's one of the help now skills that I use on a regular basis. Noticing sounds around you, counting to 10 or counting backwards from 10. Listening to sounds, pushing against a wall, touching things. Again, we're trying to get back to sensation. And you'll hear me say, if you come to any of our community resiliency model workshops, that sensation is really the language of the brain. That's how we communicate to our brain if something is safe, if something is unsafe. Your brain is already going off. So when we touch something and feel that coolness, it helps our brains get to a place where it feels like, okay, I'm safe. There's no threat. I'm feeling the coolness of the table in front of me, right? Or if I'm looking around the room, naming colors, which is a great way, another one of my go-tos, naming colors around the room. Oftentimes, this is something that children do automatically. They'll start looking around the room and find something and pick it out. They're actually resetting their nervous systems. When you play I Spy with your child and you think you're trying to distract them, you're actually employing a skill that can help them build resilience when they get bumped out of their zone or when they become dysregulated. So again, this is a tool that you can use immediately. You can take this with you right now this evening. If you go for an evening walk or walk your dog, pay attention to your feet touching the ground. Pay attention to your feet in your shoes, that sensation as you continue your walk, as you look around or when you're with your children. looking around the room, having them name colors, you're actually scanning the place around you and seeing that there's not anything there that's threatening. And so your brain can go into that feeling of safety more quickly, right? And then one more thing that I find with the Help Now or Reset Now skills that's so good is to drink a glass of water and pay attention to the temperature of that water from the moment it touches your lips all the way down to your belly. These are things that are easily available and work across the lifespan. So pay attention again to how you're feeling. Notice if you're starting to get bumped out of your resilient zone. Notice if you're getting a little activated or dysregulated. You may be able to see it in your children. And just check in and think about what are the body sensations that I feel right now? If I'm dysregulated or activated, my heart may be racing. But I know that if I use one of these skills, pay attention to those sensations that are pleasant or neutral, I'm going to be able to reset my nervous system because I've signaled safety to my brain. And I'm going to be able to take the ups and downs of life and still be able to thrive. That's the beauty of resilience. We're able to build this up over time as we practice these skills. And there are many more skills, but these are some that I thought would be immediately handy to everyone this evening. One other tangible thing that I want you to come away with, and we can go to the next slide, is the community resiliency model. The folks at TRI were smart enough to incorporate an app for it. There's an app for that. It's the iChill app. And you can download this app on your smartphone, or you can find it in your browser at www.ichillapp.com. And it goes through all of the skills of the community resiliency model that you can practice on your own and understand what's going on in your body when you're facing stress or adversity or trauma, and be able to practice the skills, learn more about how your body is responding, and then turn your attention to what's going to help you build resilience, those sensations that are pleasant or neutral. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some opportunities that you'll have to get some training if you wish, but please go on and get this app. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to respond. And I'm going to go on and kick it to Kristen for her part of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Jay-Benet. Jay-Benet used the word resiliency a lot. And so I just want to kind of bring us back and ground us in that resiliency is the ability to bounce back from adversity. So oftentimes when adversity happens, when a traumatic event happens, we call on our resiliency skills to be able to, as Jay-Benet said, bring us back into our zone. And so while Jay-Benet helped us get grounded and centered and gave us some good skills, I'm going to kind of move us along, and we're going to talk a little bit about things that we can do to support one another and to support our children and our community. I'm going to share this video with you all. And this is Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. And so I really enjoy this video because I think it helps us, and this is a great video that you can also share with children, but it helps us kind of picture what our brain is doing and how it's operating. And it helps, and because we can see it kind of in live 3D, it helps us get connected to what may be happening in our brains. Oh, wait. Oh, no.
I apologize for the technical difficulty. Kristen, you want me to try to share that?
Yes. I thought we were working. My apologies. Give me just one moment. Okay. Elizabeth, if you can find it, great. If not, I can certainly, actually, we will share Dan Siegel's version of it at a later time. I can give you the Cliff Notes and abridged version of it. Let me just pull back up our PowerPoint so we can all stay on task here. Okay. So Dan Siegel describes the brain using his hand. And what he does is he teaches us that there is this portion of our brain that deals with emotion and arousal, and that's our amygdala. And then we have the cortex that folds over our amygdala. And this, in the prefrontal cortex, is the place of our brain that regulates our thought process, our ability to reason. And so when we've experienced something that is very scary or traumatic or adverse experience, what happens is the emotion part of our brain, so our amygdala, starts to come offline. It starts to throw on an alarm system, and all of a sudden we flip our lid. And so what that means is that our ability, right, so this is where our ability to think and reason is, our ability to think and reason goes offline. And so all we can do is respond with that emotional part of our brain. And so doing those resilience skills that Jay taught us helps us really bring our prefrontal cortex back online and helps us regulate those emotions so that way we can use our thinking and reasoning skills. And so this is a great way to explain to children that, or even a reminder for ourselves about why it may be that we are not able to, when our lid is flipped, to function in the way that we are able to when our lid is not flipped. And so we know that resiliency and our ability to respond to crisis situations is kind of this continuum that happens for us. And so there is this in crisis portion where we're very anxious, we have a low mood, maybe poor sleep, there's weight loss or even weight gain. And as we move along the continuum, we want to move to excelling. And so I bring this up because I want us all to remember that in any given day, in any given week, month, year, lifetime, we can kind of ebb and flow on this continuum of where we are in our resiliency and our ability to respond to the things that are happening in the world around us and in our lives. And so moving from that in crisis to that excelling stage where we're feeling cheer and joy and energy, we're able to perform, we're able to realize potential. So I want to give everyone just a moment, maybe to check in with themselves. If you're with anyone else, maybe check in with the person sitting next to you and just figure out, where are we today? It may be different than where we were this morning. It may be different than where we were last night or where we were on Tuesday. But if we're thinking about where we are today, I invite you to check in. Nope. The other piece of this is recognizing that not only do we as an individual operate on this continuum, but so do our spouses, so do our children. And so recognizing that when maybe one day someone is thriving, the next day they might be in that struggling or surviving. And so having grace for one another and helping support one another to move to that thriving and excelling portion of the continuum. When traumatic events happen, there are typical reactions and responses. And so I wanted to just highlight here for a moment what those might be. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but it is a way just to kind of help us get grounded in what are those reactions that we may feel in ourselves or maybe see in the people around us. And so after a traumatic event, we know that oftentimes people have a change in the view of themselves and the view of the world around them. That might be something like believing the world is a scary place or seeing ourselves as weak. Our body also has emotional responses: fear, anxiety, guilt. There can be some re-experiencing after a traumatic event. So maybe replaying that event in our minds, or having nightmares, flashbacks during the day, thinking about that event. And it may be that we were there and experienced a traumatic event in person, or maybe we have a connection to that traumatic event that those re-experiencing might come up. The other typical reaction and response is avoidance. So trying not to think about what happened, trying to avoid reminders, trying to avoid anything that has a relation to the scary event or the traumatic event. Some of us may feel maybe nothing on this list. Maybe it's something different for us. Some of us may feel everything. Depending on the event, maybe we feel some things this time, and the next time something scary happens, we feel other things. But these are typical reactions. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of normalizing what the natural response is to a traumatic event. And so feelings of fear and anxiety may look one way for one person. Believing that they were responsible in some way might look different for another person. We all have our own way of processing and managing our response to a traumatic event, and these are just some of the more typical ways that we see. With that being said, we know one way to help kind of manage those typical responses is to look at protective factors. And so the way that I like to think of protective factors, and I think this graphic does a beautiful job at helping us recognize it, is protective factors are almost like bubble wrap. They're things that we can put in place to keep us safe and keep us functioning in an optimal way. And then there are risk factors that come in place and that might threaten or pop a bubble or two if you're using that analogy. And so when we're dealing with our families, when we're dealing with our children, when we're dealing with people in the community, we want to find what are those protective factors that we can help build in order to create resilience. And so in this graphic here, sleep, proper nutrition, emotional support, engagement in social activities, being physical. Jamie and I talked about going for a walk. Those are all things that are protective factors. They protect us against those risk factors. And so on the outside, you can see maybe there's anxiety or depression. Maybe there's a traumatic event. Maybe there's conflict that's happening. Maybe we see behavior problems or life changes and challenges. And so the more we can pour into those protective factors, the more we can recognize the need to create space for those protective factors to grow in our children, the more resilient we will see both ourselves and our families and communities become. So things to look out for. We're all in this together. And I say that to remind us that it takes a village. And so when you experience a traumatic event, or when someone has an event that was scary for them, we want to make sure that we're checking in with one another. Things that we might take notice of, things maybe parents would take notice of in their children to recognize that they are out of their resilient zone, is maybe there's a change in eating habits or appetite or lack of appetite. A hypervigilance, being really aware about what is going on in the environment, constantly scanning to make sure that the environment is safe. and extreme or increased mood changes. These are going to be things that are not typical for that person at baseline. And increased difficulties with being able to focus or pay attention. If there's changes in sleep hygiene and habits, maybe nightmares are making it very difficult to sleep, or maybe depression or sadness is kicking in and it's hard to wake up. But we're going to look for those changes. Also, changes in or difficulties with managing daily activities. So things that people used to be able to manage well, now they're struggling to manage. Increase in physical ailments. Javane reminded us that our minds and our bodies often tell us the things that we need to know. And so while we may not have, especially younger children, may not have the emotional language, they may have those somatic symptoms. So things like stomach aches or increase in headaches, things that aren't typically there. Increase in irritability, and maybe a change in our performance either at work or at school. So these are just a short list of things that we might want to keep an eye out for. And when we recognize it, to check in with one another, to check in with our children, and if necessary, get them connected with resources. So Coastal Horizons currently is offering for anyone that feels like they might be out of their resilient zone, anyone feels like the things on that list that we just looked at, change in sleep or appetite, change in behavior, change in appetite, are things that they're experiencing or their children are experiencing. We just need you to reach out. So we put our phone number there, call Coastal Horizons. We'll get you connected with a licensed professional. Together, you will collaboratively create a plan that's best for you. That might be just learning a little bit more about our brain, the way we respond to scary events or traumatic events, and connecting to resources in our community. For some, the best plan might be treatment. Whatever that plan is for you, we want to help make that connection. And so if you go to the Coastal Horizons website, there's a referral form that you can fill out and someone will reach out to you. And these brief intervention services are free of charge. The next couple of slides we won't spend too much time on, but because we are going to put it on the website and make this accessible to all those that want it, the next are just some helpful and useful websites and resources. So Coastal Horizons is on here, the New Hanover County Resiliency Task Force, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, all great places to get more information. We put some local resources here. So these are phone numbers and agencies local to Wilmington, to New Hanover County and surrounding counties, if people feel like they want to connect via a phone call. We also put some national resources on here. More of these also give the option to do text if that feels more comfortable for you in wanting to reach out. This slide has lots of hyperlinks, but these are just resiliency resources, videos, recordings, podcasts, social media, websites, films, all ways that you can learn more. We also included some books and resources for those that are interested in perhaps maybe reading and learning more that way. And that brings us to our next step. So we talk about resiliency as a continuum, as is the journey that we are all on together. And so I invite you all to check in with yourself and to check in with those around you, whether it be, again, your spouse, your child, another parent in the drop-off line at school. And then determine how you want to move forward for yourself and your family. For some, using those skills Jay taught us, that might be enough for right now. For others, it may be that they want to learn more to build their resilience skills. Connect with your community, whether that's your physical community, whether that's a faith community, whether that's a community centered around hobbies. We know that relationship is important and connection is important. And so we invite you to connect with those around you. Jay mentioned there's upcoming trainings and skill development opportunities. And if that feels comfortable for you, we invite you to do that. Maybe others, that list that I gave that said, let's keep an eye on these things. And if they're happening, let's take notice. Maybe after reading that list, you say, I want to engage in the treatment process. I want to engage with a clinician or a therapist and talk about the things that I experienced, the scary events that maybe I have a connection to or took witness to. And all along the way, we invite you to check in with yourself and with those around you, making that connection with other people. There's some upcoming training opportunities. There's, again, Jay mentioned the community resiliency model. There is a training on Monday, the January 24th, that will take place virtually from 8:30 to 5. If you are interested in that training and you have your phone out right now, that QR code right there is the link, so that way you can get connected and sign up for and register for that training. We have some other CRIM, community resiliency model, trainings that are going to come up that are a little bit shorter for those of you that maybe 8:30 to 5 on a work weekday might feel like a little too much. We have other CRIM trainings that will be happening that will be shorter in duration, and you can check out the Coastal Horizons website. You can also check out NHC Bounces Back. That is the New Hanover County Resiliency Task Force website. We also are getting ready, starting in January, to offer mental health first aid and youth mental health first aid. So in the same way that we offer first aid to respond to someone who is in a physical crisis, there also is mental health first aid and youth mental health first aid that teach us the skills when we're interacting with someone who might be experiencing mental health symptoms, and how we can help support them and get them connected. And so if any of these feel comfortable for you, we invite you to participate as you see best for you and your family and your community. We believe that connections matter. We believe that being a community means that we support one another in whatever way that may be. And so Jay and I have both shared our email addresses here. We invite you to reach out if there is something that we can do as far as connection to resources. We are happy to do so. And so please, if you have a pen and paper or your cell phone, if you want to take a screenshot, we invite you to reach out to us via email, and we'll support you in whatever way we can. We want to take a moment to thank you for being a part of our conversation tonight. We appreciate this opportunity to spend this time and space with you. And I will turn it over to Jay to see if there are any questions that came through, and we can answer those now.
Thank you, Kristen. I don't see any questions in the Q&A or the chat. So if anyone does have any questions, you are more than welcome to really ask anything. This is what this time is for. We did throw a little bit, quite a bit of information at you. So we do invite you to ask questions, or if you have comments, feel free to share those as well.
Parents, let me just say this. I work with children and I have for a long time, and sometimes it takes them a little while to react. And especially right now around the holidays, there might be a lot going on that's sort of covering up what they're feeling, but just watch your children, watch them closely. We have wonderful resources right here with these folks in this webinar. And we're just so grateful to have this opportunity in our community. So please just watch your children carefully and yourselves if you need some help. We're all here for you and we all love you.
Excellent. And we will make those slides available on the Coastal Horizons website for those of you that want to use any of those links. Or maybe, like Anna said, there's a lot of information that was given. So maybe if you just want to go back and review some of it, you'll have the opportunity to do that. And while this is recorded, we invite you to share with those around you. If you feel like this is something that someone else would benefit from, we ask for you to just reach out to any of us. We'll make sure to get you the recording, to get you the resources in a way that feels easy and comfortable for you. So thank you all very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.